All right, all these license plates I'm documenting at B Street in Euclid are engaging in surveillance with the entity that is stalking by helicopter and is stalking by commercial plane right here at this intersection of B Street in Euclid. All right, and I'm also documenting these demons over here on the side street. This third party stalking with light and goes into a facilitating venue at 106 B Street. And all these license plates are sharing in the pattern of conduct. I documented them. They're in C. The P.O.C, which you can see by virtue of my shadow enlarged at the top of that building over there, that's impossible light activity. All right, this is the entity that's stalking by plane and helicopter, which again, the Ontario Police Department are nothing other than a walking, talking, gang stalking advertisement regarding who to prosecute, who is targeting with that agency that is overtly, inconspicuously, and admittedly targeting in furtherance of murder and with the intent to frame for murder. Murder that the Ontario Police Department, that Mike LORRAINE is responsible for. And there will be no framing. In fact, they've admitted to engaging in that murder by virtue of targeting. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's doing cartwheels and flying over. This is the stalking by the Ontario in concert with the Ontario Police Department. And these are the people of the state that are documented engaging in that 9NOU337 P.O.C. All right, Omnitrans is engaging in the criminal conspiracy to commit murder. They're engaging in what is criminal surveillance. They're engaged in that at Stater Brothers as well. This is what the entity is doing. So as I'm going from city to city, there are no terminals. They are hovering over the intersection over here at B Street in Euclid. And this is what they were doing this morning while the entity is flying over a mule car, which they're not doing now. Remember, because I'm in alignment with the mule car, they're going to fly over here south of my person. As I'm at the Ontario Town Square over here on the bench, then they fly over a mule car. This is where they're engaging in this morning, and the people of the state are parked on the sidewalk like I documented, while Griffith Company is stalking with light in the path, and the Ontario police are stalking with light in the path at the United States Postal Service, 123 West Holt Boulevard, while the entity is stalking with commercial planes. And these demons are maintaining ongoing surveillance on the roads and the highways, stalking together, which is an ongoing 24-hour ceaseless endeavor. These are worker demons. These are all worker demons. Satan has full control over them, and all they are doing is monitoring. Okay, this is P.O.C. They are referred to as the people of the state. The entities engaged in this criminal activity in furtherance of murdering somebody, and they're going to be prosecuted as terrorists and identified. They're not murdering anybody. They've murdered their own future. They've murdered their own prospects regarding ever having any privacy, and they've murdered the prospects with regard to being successful in the criminal conduct under any secretive circumstances. This is P.O.C. These are demons. Alrighty, that's the pattern of conduct. It is currently, by the way, where the entity, that's the third plane. Look at these demons, 944. You can see the mutilation of the face. Alrighty, that's the pattern of conduct. These are the demon possessed. License 9 Mary Larry Nary 993. Excuse me, 9 Mary Larry Nelly or Nancy 993. All right, P.O.C. That's the pattern of conduct. They're doing so. They're all driving in traffic where you're looking at the engineer light. The entity is maintaining the flights over my location, south of me. The entity is flying in circles over my head by helicopter, followed from church. Followed from what is the Holt Boulevard at the Church's Chicken at I believe that is 715 West Holt Boulevard. While I'm starting that video, and the entity stalking by helicopter, and the entity follows up to where I get off at the bus. The entity flies in circles over the top of my head. This is where the entity is stalking with commercial planes. This is ongoing incessant stalking right here. They're parked in engineer light, okay? They are of all ages and races. They are, again, engaged in that pattern of conduct in the identical environment, and there is no changing of that pattern of conduct, and there are none that are not engaging in that pattern of conduct. 9 Edward Apple Yolanda 928. This is shattering the illusion of privacy, shattering the illusion of sanity, shattering the illusion that there's any exception to what is a criminal conduct that the entity is clearly engaging in as an entity. All right, the entity is engaging in that together as one, and this is a 24-hour endeavor, including through what is going to be shut down, the Ontario Police Department, the Ontario Fire Department, the Ontario International Airport, who are engaging in this ongoing campaign, as I've been documenting for years, as I have been pummeling this entity with documentation, and I've documented how they are out of hostility, and because they are criminally monitoring on the internet and my devices, as I publish evidence, the entity engages in more terrorism, and that's exactly why Mike LORRAINE, Derek Williams are being federally prosecuted, while Paul Leon is being federally prosecuted, while those that engage in kidnapping, which includes Upland Police and the Ontario Police, they're being disbanded. Okay, that's Darren Goodman, Marcelo Blanco, the current terrorist leader over the Upland Police, gang stalking me by helicopter as in 2026. They didn't end that pattern of conduct. That ongoing kidnapping still remains that which has not been compensated for, that which has not been answered for, and you are not retiring or transferring out of a federal prosecution. There is no statute of limitations. While the city of Ontario, the city of Fontana is gang stalking me. You kidnap me even in LA County, you're going to be federally prosecuted for it, speaking to the entire entity. All right, this is an illusion regarding city to city and jurisdiction. They're one entity. That's why Fontana Police maintains the identical pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct is supernatural. The pattern of conduct is underway by the demon possessed. And this is speaking to that beast system where the entire population is demon possessed. Those that are targeted are those that are the exception. Okay, that's the POC. It is current, and that's exactly what I represent. I am being targeted by the demon possessed, those that belong to Satan. Alrighty, and Satan is defeated. So this is Mulecar and El Bacone. They're gang stalking. I'm gonna get these license plates right now. Molestation, 9 Paul Jerry Thomas 577, sexual assault and battery. 9 George Robert 550, sexual assault and battery. This is El Bacone at 200 North Euclid Avenue. Peculiarized light, stalking with the Ontario International Airport, sexual assault and battery. License Edward 599 Edward 1. Doing so while the entity is stalking also serially with commercial planes. This is the same venue that's gang stalking while they are maintaining the venue, and the entity is flying over the venue by planes. This is the entity that's gang stalking in the back seat. I just want to be clear, this is the pattern of conduct. This is exactly what's going to be played in court when they're holding up the peace signs and gang stalking. This is what's going to be played in court. E599 Edward 1 is gang stalking and furtherance of murder. License plate 26G8296, sexual assault and battery. And El Bacone is the federal RICO case as well. They're making money off of gang stalking. This is the venue where the Ontario International Airport is flying. So while I'm on the opposite side of the bench, Ontario International Airport's flying over, hovering, plane after plane after plane. Okay, that's the entity that's gang stalking. El Bacone and Mulecar Smokehouse. This is the 200 North Euclid Avenue. Sexual assault and battery, license 8 Yolanda Thomas Larry 382. Stalking with the Ontario Police Department on a nightly basis while the entity flies over me by helicopter. The license plates that I gather on a daily basis, nightly basis, it's speaking to the totality of that crime. As I gain more and more specifically identified defendants, just for publishing and for sharing with the world, those that can identify, say you know somebody in San Bernardino and I document them. Yeah, they're a demon, they're a terrorist, and they are going to be prosecuted. License 9 SSK 648, sexual assault and battery. 7 Edward Indiana Mary 230, sexual assault and battery, stalking with the city of Ontario, plane and helicopters, and furtherance of murder. 5 Wendy Thomas 920, sexual assault and battery, stalking in the back seat of the car. It appears as though this one. Anyway, license plate. I'm going to get the license plate of this vehicle. Whether they're in the car or not, it doesn't matter. License plate 9 Kelly Sam Thomas 244. License 9 Henry 0 Thomas 906. And if you'll pay attention, what I documented this morning during the 5 a.m. hour, the 2-door vehicle that's parked right here, this is where the entity was stalking by commercial planes right here doing a cartwheel. And while I was at the bench on this side of the El Bacone, the entity was flying over the building. That's what I documented on video. As I walk over here, then they're flying, again, south of my person, doing a cartwheel. And the demon was in the vehicle, using the vehicle as lights. Ontario police were stalking at 123 West Hope Boulevard, engaging criminal summoning. Griffith Company was stalking at what is Hope Boulevard and Plum. They're maintaining a perimeter of light. I published that on X, okay? The entities engage in this while they are stalking in the path, and they're doing so while the federal government is aware of what is the criminal motivation, the criminal acts of this entity seeking to frame for murder, while the city itself is engaging in that and stealing from me simultaneously. This is the prosecution of Paul Leon, who was funding terrorism, having committed these criminal acts, and doing so facilitating that violence amongst the population. Paul Leon's being federally prosecuted and being removed from office for the stalking by the Ontario Police, by the Ontario International Airport, by the people of the state and the city of Ontario. For the facilitating environment that is shown in Ontario, where he's a part of that same community, and you're not remaining in office as a terrorist. License 9 UUZ 538. This is P.O.C. This is all serving to not only prosecute, as I'm prosecuting the agency, all right, which is prosecuting the city, that's prosecuting the official that is exposed as a terrorist. That's anyone, including Karen Bass, Aquanetta Warren, you have Paul Leon, okay? As I'm speaking to the entity that as you're going from city to city and I'm showing you that pattern of conduct, they're not remaining in office. These are terrorists that are being removed as the entity is targeting me in these cities, and they're doing so pursuant to what is a criminal objective, like I stated, of murder. All right, this is a widely invested criminal case, and that's why you have people that I don't know going. I don't know the people in Ontario that are gang stalking me, let alone going to cities like in Fontana, where the entire community is targeting, and that's proven through that environment and the entity that's stalking by commercial plane and helicopter in that specific environment, targeting while I'm aboard public transportation. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and it is the investment of the entity to engage in what is murder, and in this particular circumstance, this entity targeted to try to get away with stealing my wealth. They've already done that, and they've been doing that for years. This is no longer a secret, and they're still engaging in surveillance while they anticipate raids. They anticipate criminal and civil prosecutions, and I'm maintaining this evidence because I'm going to federally prosecute based on that knowledge and that simultaneous conduct of terrorism. The entity that is anticipating the fact that they are handing over what it is that they stole from me, and they continuously engaged in targeting me in furtherance of murder and psychological torture the entire time, which is an unlawful threat posed to me even by the court that permitted this entity to steal from me and violate my due process rights. While Mike Lorenz, in other words, and the city of Ontario is targeting, the state of California is targeting the court system that is aware of the fact that it was improper to permit anyone to to take my money, doing so under fraudulent, dishonest, improper circumstances, has permitted that ongoing threat. It is reasonably foreseeable when you've committed that sort of violation for that amount of money, and that you leave that person, that subject to that, unbeknownst to them. They're still not a part of those court hearings. They're still not informed about it, and you are leaving that ongoing risk to exist. That's a basis to recover from the court that has not resolved that issue. That ongoing threat that remains, including as I'm documenting in this very evidence. It is insufficient that the entity is anticipating on giving me what was stolen. It is insufficient while I remain in this impoverished state subject to the pattern of conduct. The government is very much engaged in, the people of the state are the government, very much engaged in trying to steal from me. I'm documenting poisoning. I'm documenting ongoing battery, theft of my property. I'm documenting ongoing psychological torture tactics and harassment by a population, which is terrorism, while they're stalking. They're not stalking just because they want to scare a little bit. This is the entity that wants to engage in what is murder because they are mad that they're not keeping my money. And a court that has nonetheless provided what is a basis to receive what was stolen from me is still engaging in what is unlawful. It's not merely irresponsible. It's not merely insufficient. It is criminal that I remain subject to this, and I remain subject to this while you are aware of what is going to be a reasonably foreseeable threat where a government has stolen money like the entity has done. Okay, that's the P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging what is stalking with impossible light. This is criminal conduct of the Ontario Police Department. The same entity that's stalking by helicopter, walking on foot is the psychopathic pacing. They're acting together. They're not strangers. They're engaging in this while they are stalking on Euclid Avenue, and I just documented a series of their license plates. They're stalking, gang stalking, and monitoring, not socializing. They're not focused on that. That's why the entity is stalking by plane and helicopter over the El Bacone. That's why the entity keeps things like a fake sun and a fake moon over me. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and simultaneously ongoing is a prosecution of the court, which is a part of this corrupt system that intentionally left me in a state of what is oppression, ongoing threat to my life and safety, when that court is aware of the fact of the years of being stolen from, and an idea, more than an idea, of what has been suffered while this entity has been stealing from me, and it includes this criminal activity. Permitting it to go on is unlawful. Permitting it to go on while it is even being documented, which this entity, by virtue of the crime of monitoring, is aware of that evidence, that's unlawful. It will not be enough for Mike Lorenz to be in prison, but those that are going to be federally prosecuted include those that call themselves returning to me what was stolen, but you left the circumstance the same. Okay, that's the entity that's being federally prosecuted for that. This is what American citizens are never able to give voice to because they're already 6 feet under. And corrupt courts that permit theft like this, that aren't forced to do what is only half of the problem, which is restoring wealth, which I still have not touched my money, have not heard anything. I have not been a part of any court hearings. Nonetheless, this is something that the entity is anticipating while I'm being gang stalked. In other words, the entity hopes to take my life before I even access that. And that's the unlawful threat. That's criminal conduct by the state. That is literally committed to get away with stealing from you. So I just want to be clear. The superficial appearance of, oh, well, it's in the process of coming back to you while we're still gang stalking you. We are still targeting and furtherance of murdering you to get away with stealing your money. That's the same criminal conduct. It is not different. This is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 9:56 p.m. This is relevant to the prosecution of terrorists. Terrorists that are going to be federally prosecuted, and they're going to prison. They're not just going to give me my money. They are going to federal prison. And it includes that, which is Paul Leon. It includes those that are gang stalking me in other cities, like what's going on in Fontana and in Upland. It includes those that are gang stalking in concert with that entity, which are the people of the state. Those that are sharing in the ongoing criminal defamation campaign in order to murder me and also frame me for murder that this entity committed, while they have already stolen from me and are targeting because they surmised that targeting in this manner, which works against demons like them, would successfully defame my character. And that way I would look like I'm a mentally ill person claiming that I'm being gang stalked without any evidence, and also that I'm a murderer, which is what this entity has contended outside of my knowledge. And the entity stalking me by helicopter is not investigating an alleged murder. Mike Lorenz is targeting me as a murderer, as a stalker, and a thief. And the court that has permitted this entity to steal my money is also criminally and civilly responsible for it, as I remain under what is an ongoing ceaseless threat, which is also the purpose of this documentation. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:57 p.m.